Zion. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ayin Zion, 77a. It's 8 lines from the top, middle of the line. Hahu nishbar etzem. There was this bone that was broken. We learned in the Mishnah that a broken bone above the ankle makes the animal treif. Actually, if it was cut, it makes the animal treif. If the bone is broken, then it makes a difference if the skin is intact. So, cut would mean that it's cut all the way through. But here it's broken. But it goes out. So we said there was this difference. What would determine if it's kosher is if it's the circumference, majority of the circumference is there, or the majority of the width is there. And it was unclear what the difference, circumference and width, was. However, in this case, the shtakel kurtisa mine, a piece of the bone fell off. So not only was it cracked, but it even lost a piece of the bone. It fell out. 77. Asalakami da Abaya comes in front of Abaya in Shas Tilsa Wrigley, and it waits 3 holidays. So, in other words, Abaya waits 3 holidays to give an answer. Amar Allah. Abaya's over here. He's in Pumpadisa. He waits 3 holidays to get the answer. Why 3 holidays? Because he's waiting for the rabbis.
Wants to make sure it survives a year.
That's interesting. Rashi says that the reason is he's waiting for the sages to gather and to discuss it with them. So it was like these cases in court that they keep postponing to,
Don't the sages show up each holiday?
Yeah, and I guess they were, okay, undecided, we'll discuss it again next holiday. So, Amalei Rav Ada Bar Masna, Rav Ada Bar Masna tells the fellow, the owner, he says, Zil Kamei de Rava Breder Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Come to Rav Yosef Breder, come to Rava, the son of Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Okay, we may have had Rava's father's name before, but now we have it explicitly. So here we have Rava, right down here, Rava. He went to Abaya. Rav Ada Bar Masna says, go to Rava, the son of Rav Yosef Bar Chama. I don't know if Rav Yosef Bar Chama is on the chart, but now we have
Rami Bar Chama.
Isn't that interesting? Is it possible Rami Bar Chama is an uncle? Because Rami Bar Chama married the same woman that Rava married. I mean, after Rami Bar Chama died, Rava didn't marry. So would that be a problem?
Maybe they were brothers and he did Yibum.
No. This is Rava, the son of Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Rava, the son of Rav Yosef Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama may be an uncle.
Oh.
And Marukva Bar Chama may be an uncle. I never thought of that. Anyway, Rav Ada Bar Masna says, let's go to him. The Charifa Sakina. Oh, he's sharp. He's a sharp knife. You'll get an answer quick by Rava. Asalakame comes to Rava. Amar, Rava says, Michti. Now that Nishbar Etzem Yatzalachotz Tanan, it says in the Mishnah, if it breaks, 77. If it breaks, the bone breaks and it goes outside, that's what was taught in the Mishnah. Mali Nafa Malis, what's the difference if a piece broke off or not?
It says here in the Bais.
Oh, you're right, it's a correction. The Gemara says Tanan, but on the side it says Tanya. Thank you. Thank you.
You're really into those prices.
Yeah, no, very good. On the side there's a correction. The brackets on the side is in the Meseres Hashas is Rabbi Shaya Pin. So, okay, so it's a brisa. Nishbar Etzem b'yatzalachot. That's a brisa. He's right. Nishbar Etzem b'yatzalachot. So, Mali Nafa Malis, what's the difference if it's there or not? So apparently Rav is telling him that you can be lenient as long as the meat is there. It doesn't matter if a piece of the bone fell off. It doesn't make it any worse. Amalei Ravina l'Rava. Ravina says to Rava, would this be Ravina the first? I guess so. Ravina the second would be pretty far away. He has some new questions here. I'm not sure if it's like associated with specifically with what he just said, his lenient view. He says, mislakit mal, let's say there is meat around the bone, but in order to get the right measurement of the majority of the width of it or the circumference of it, it needs to be collected together because the pieces are just there. Or misrasis mal, let's say it's flat, it's like thinned out. Or mismasis mal, let's say it's decomposing the meat that's surrounding the bone, that's the critical meat that would make it kosher. Mar says, Hechidam mismasis, what do you mean if it's decomposing? Amar Rav Huna Breid Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna Breid Rav Yeshua, here we have next to Rav Papa is Rav Huna Breid Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna Breid Rav Yeshua says, Kol Sharayfe Kaidrei. That's anything that the Rav, his student is Rav Papa, and next to him is Rav Huna Breid Rav Yeshua. This is anything that the doctor would cut off because it's when it's what's it called when the gangrene.
Necrosis.
Cuts away the den meat.
So it doesn't spread.
Very good. Necrosis.
Necrosis as well as dead meat. Is dead tissue.
Okay. Ibailu, they asked the question.
Noise.
Nikev mahu. Let's say that meat has holes in it. No, it's not that it's missing, but it has holes in it. It's interesting, we didn't get any answers for the last questions. Niklef mahu. Let's say it's peeled. It means it's peeled back. It means it's not directly attached to the bone the way it should be. Nistak mahu. Let's say it's cracked. Nitel shlisha tachten mahu. Let's say the lower third of the thickness, which is next to the bone, was removed. The part of the meat that's on the lower part, on like closer to the bone. So tashma. Come and listen. We'll hopefully try to answer one. The Amar Ulam Rabbi Yochanan or Hariyah Kabasar. The flesh is like the meat. So that's a proof that if the flesh is, the skin is like the meat. The skin is like the flesh. The skin is like the flesh. So if that's the case, the skin is there. That should be good enough. Even if the lower meat, the lower flesh is missing. The Gemara says no. Dilma de kanamashchedidei. Maybe over there, that's where the skin holds its own, because somehow it was naturally like that the skin was there. But here, the skin was attached to the flesh, and the flesh got cut away. Could be this skin is not like the flesh. It is not good enough. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, Ki avinan bei Rav Papi bailan. When I was in the house of Rav Papi, he asked this question: Niktar kamin tabas mahu. If it's cut away in a circular way, as if it's a ring, what's the din? I don't have a picture to imagine. I don't know what he's referring to. Is he referring to the lower flesh, or is he referring to that it's going? Is he referring that it's going around the bone that it's cut off? Is he referring to just a ring on one side, a circle? It's unclear.
Hold it. Got an illustration. Hold it.
$10 a month is worth it. I'm old school already.
Believe that I'm getting the whole house with it. That's the picture.
So I guess we're just looking at that area. That circle is removed.
It's above the Tzomet Agidim.
Correct. We're talking about above the Tzumas Hagid, right?
Above.
What I'm asking is, when it says a circle, is it talking about a circle around or a circle like this?
According to that picture. I mean, that can
Yeah, it sounds like a circle is not all the way around.
It says
Okay, it has to be that it's just a circle on the top of it. Superficial. Okay. Upashtana meha, and Rav Papi answered it from here. Is Rav Papi on the chart?
No, it's not.
No.
so cool.
The Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Davazeh Shalti Lachachamim V'Lareifim. This I asked. Rav Yehuda Marav says. Rav Yehuda Marav, we had many times. Rav Yehuda, Rav Yehuda, the student of Rav, early. He says, V'Amru, he says that if you have a case where the flesh needs to heal, to get more attached to the bone. Mesartei be'etzem. You scratch the bone with another bone, umala rucha, and it will heal. Aval parzala, but don't scratch the bone with iron. Mizraf zarif, because mizraf zarif, that will
Make an inflammation.
make an inflammation.
That's the word inflammation.
Inflammation. What do you think of that?
I think that's really weird because nowadays, if there's a fracture, all right, if there's a space missing, sometimes they'll have to, or various things, they'll do a bone graft. They'll take a bone from somewhere else, put it in there, which sounds like the
first
ratio part of the statement. However, all other fractures that don't adjoin, they pin, right? So that's metal, titanium nowadays.
The answer to that is that today they're able to sterilize it better, possibly.
Without a question, that's why they use titanium.
And then they weren't able to sterilize it, so that would be worse.
Yeah, they end up with a nasty myelitis.
So Mizraf Zarif, not to use it. Amar Rav Papa says, V'hu the kana garma didei.
That's from his
We
bones.
see that the bone is strong, that it will be able to heal. This is only going to work if it's going to heal. Okay. Start a new Mishnah. Hasheichet es behema.
Can you
So-
bring a bone from a different person or animal?
No, we
Put it in?
reject it.
You won't.
Unless
Has
they
to be-
gave them,
Right.
you know,
it has to be
anti-
from-
There's this
Rejection of it.
yeah.
there's this incredible piece in Sefer Hasidim where there was a wealthy man that went away and he died. He traveled with his servant and he died. And the servant comes back and says he's the son, and he claimed the inheritance. And the son wanted the money, and he couldn't prove it. His father wasn't there. He couldn't prove that he's the heir. So he was at Reb Sadia Gaon's house, and Reb Sadia Gaon says, "Why aren't you eating?" He says, "I have this problem." He says, "I can help you. You're going to go to the grave. You're going to take some blood out. No, you're going to take a bone from the corpse. We're going to let blood from you, and we're going to let blood from the slave. We're going to put the bone in each of these pitchers of blood, and if the blood absorbs in the bone, that's going to be a proof that you're the child."
Interesting. Wow.
1,000 years ago.
DNA.
The
Okay.
original poor man's DNA test.
What is DNA?
Okay,
What is DNA?
so Hasheichet es behema.
Did it work, by the way? Did it work?
I think so. I think it says that. I don't remember the conclusion. So okay, Hasheichet es behema. If someone slaughters an animal, umatza bashilya, and he finds in it a placenta, nefesh yafa techlena. If he's a good soul, he can eat it. That means if he's not finicky. Now, it's interesting. This term we've had it before, but it may be euphemistic. It may be actually nefesh. It may be saying someone that's not nefesh hayafa would mean someone that's very finicky. It's an interesting expression. Nefesh hayafa is so refined, you know.
What's the regular term we always find in Gemara?
Saginar? No.
No, for the person.
Oh, istinus.
Istinus. Yeah.
Istinus. So it's the opposite of an istinus. So, but here it sounds like nefesh hayafa should be an istinus, someone that's so refined, and this is just a euphemism.
It's the opposite,
Right.
because it's disgusting.
Right. So okay, but he can eat, it's kosher.
So that's really Lashon Nakiya.
Right. Right. Ve'ina mitama, and it also doesn't contaminate loy tumas eichlin v'loy tumas nevelas. It's not food, and it's also not a nevela. Well, in this case, clearly it's not a nevela because the animal was shechted. But it's not a nevela anyway, because it's just skin. Let's say he thinks about it to eat it. Somehow he has a way of eating it. He's going to cook it up a long time. It's going to get soft. He's going to be able to eat it. It becomes food, and therefore will become contaminated if it comes in contact with a sheretz or something. but it won't become nevela. It won't have the contamination of a carcass of an animal, because it's not considered the flesh of the animal. It's just skin. Shilya sheyatsa miktsasa, a new case. Part of the placenta came out, and the mother was shechted. Asura ba'achila. You can't eat it, even though just a little bit went out. So what about the rest of it? We had all the Gemaras, Reb Meir and the Chachamim. If an arm goes out, you can always eat the rest that's left inside. So there's a problem here, because siman vlad be'isha, siman vlad be'behema. If there is a shilya, if there is a placenta, then there must have been a fetus. Now, where is the fetus? Well, we'll say that maybe it dissolved inside, but the part that came out actually contained the head in it. And therefore, we know that the head is considered the birth. So this is considered entirely born. Just like if a fetus comes out, the head comes out, that's enough, and it's considered out. So the shilya also could be that the head was there and it's out. An animal that's giving birth for the first time. The child should be a bechar. Shehipila shilya, that the placenta came out, yashlichena leklavim. You can throw it to the dogs. It's not considered it doesn't have any sanctity. We don't consider that the child is stuck inside and it dissolved inside, and this is really sanctified. Like a minute ago we did. When it was coming out, we said that, it's considered born because that was the head. And all of a sudden now we don't say that when it comes to we'll see. The makdashim, however, if it was this carbon that gives birth to this placenta, to cover that has to be buried, because there is an assumption that the child is inside, the offspring is inside. The last part of the Mishnah is a little different. This is like you can't bury it on the crossroads. You don't hang it on trees because of superstitions. Darkei Amori is the ways of the Amorites. These were the people that lived in Israel before the Jewish people lived there, and they had all types of superstitions. And it's different superstitions in the Torah we don't do. It's called Darkei Amori, the ways of the Amorites. The Gemara asks, Mina hanimili, how do you know that you can eat the placenta? The Tana Rabbana was taught in the Bais, Kol behema teichelu. Kol v'chulu, supposed to say. Any of the animal you can eat.
No, it really means the behemoths eat the placentas after the new. You ever see an animal? So, call behemoth tequila. It's just a kid joke.
I went to Robert is here. You know that store down in Homestead. Robert is here.
Yeah.
So over in the back they have animals. The fruit stand is spectacular, but in the back they have animals. And right then there was a goat that was giving birth.
Oh.
And it gave birth, and we just waited there. It was just amazing. The mother eats the placenta afterwards. It was just all within a half hour. The animal's already up and walking. No.
Yeah, the dog pasta.
Oh yeah. Okay, so kol behema, but that's not what we're talking about.
I know.
Kol behema techelo is Rabbi says a shilya. It says all, it's including the shilya, is also permitted with the shechita of the mother. Yachal afilu yatsa miktasa. So maybe even if a little bit goes out, the same law should apply. Talmud Laimar Isa. No, only it is permitted. Isa v'lay shilyasa, but not the shilya. So michti. 1 second. Ein shilya b'lay vlad. You don't need to say that. If a little bit of the shilya came out, I don't need Isa to teach me that. There was a birth there. If there's a shilya, there has to be something there. There was probably born. I don't need a pasuk. And if it's born, then the shechita of the mother doesn't cover all the offspring that are running around. So, lama likra, why do I need a pasuk? The Gemara says, yeah, you're right. Kras machta balma. You actually don't need a pasuk. The pasuk actually comes to teach me something else. And so we learned before, Rashi points out, that if someone sticks his hand in and cuts off a piece of the spleen or a piece of the kidneys, and you shech the mother, that those pieces are not permittable. Isa, only what's attached to the animal. Even if he leaves it inside, it's still forbidden. Okay, so we have if the shilya is inside, the kol includes it, and isa just excludes these other things. But if it's partially coming out, it's considered born.
If an animal was born, what's the word? Not head first. The other word. Breech. Is not born according to this.
Yeah, only if the majority of it comes out. So
Even
usually,
if the head didn't come out.
yeah, even if the head didn't come out. So you have the two options: either the head or the majority if it's breached. Ve'ina metama, we said that it doesn't give off impurity. Boy, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nafcha. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nafcha asks a question. See on the chart? I don't know who he is. I know Rabbi Yochanan Bar Nafcha.
My brother.
I don't know. We had a Rabbi Yitzchak over here on the side, but okay. Or chamar shesholku. Let's say the skin of a donkey that's sholku means that it's cooked, overcooked. Mahu. What's the din? The Gemara asks, well, what is your question? Lamai, what are you referring to? Ila tumasaychlin, are you questioning if it will contract tuma of food and it's going to be considered food? Tanina, that was taught in a Mishnah. Ila tumas nevelas, or a brisa. Usually tanina means a Mishnah. Here, I guess it's a brisa. Or are you asking if it's tumas nevela? Well, that also tanina. That I also was taught in a Mishnah or a brisa. Tumas eichlin, when it comes to the becoming impure, like food becomes impure, that means it's able to receive tuma. It's susceptible to tuma. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Ha'or v'ashilya, skin and the placenta, ein metamin tumas eichlin. It does not contract tuma of food because it's not food. It's skin. Or shesholku, but let's say skin that was overcooked. V'hashilya, or the placenta, shechishav aleh tumas, shechishav aleh, that you have intention to eat it, then metamin tumas eichlin. It does become impure. So what's his question? We have a clear case of skin that's overcooked, that it becomes food if the person wants to eat it. If it's overcooked, it gets softer. Tumas nevelas nami tanino. We also know the law of a dead carcass regarding the skin. The pasuk says binya vlasa, in its carcass. Not the skin, not the bones, not the sinews, not the horns, and not the hoofs. None of these give off the impurity. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana talks about this brisa. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana was this relative of Rav, but he's a student of Rabbi Yochanan here in Israel. He says, I only need this brisa to teach me anything, because I would have known this without the brisa, to tell me if it becomes tzike kedera. Tzike kedera is like a pudding, that it's, tzike is like to pour, if it gets so soft in the pot. And nevertheless, it's not a nevela, even though it's been softened. So regarding tumas oichlin, if it's considered food, it is tamei. Regarding tumas nevela, it's not tamei. What was the question of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nafcha? So the Gemara says, loilam tumas oichlin. This question was the first thing. Vishani or chamar damas, but the skin of a donkey is disgusting. So normally by skin that's cooked, it does become food, but not by a donkey. Or maybe even by a donkey. That was his question. Could be a donkey is different.
But it's not kosher. What's the question?
Question is, even though it's not kosher, but maybe if a sheretz touches it, it's still considered food. When you get to Masaychlin, it doesn't have to be. It needs to be edible to be tumas eichlin. It doesn't have to be kosher. Shilya, and also, is it really non-kosher if it wasn't edible? This is you jumping into the gelatin question. I don't know. I wonder if this is one of the things that they discuss. Okay. Shilya shiyatzisa. We're talking about over here that if it comes out, if the placenta comes out a little bit, it's forbidden to eat because it's considered like it was born, because there was something inside. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Lazar says this is an extremely important discussion on this Mishnah. You see, Rabbi Lazar is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, and we're going to have Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan here. These are the two from Tiberia, the two very important sages there. Rabbi Lazar says, "Leishanu al hasheni mavlad." Why do we think that the placenta comes out, that was a birth? Because we waited and no other fetus came out. So we think, where's the fetus? It must be inside. Aval yeshi mavlad. But if there is another fetus that comes out, so ein chayshishin levlad acher. I don't suspect that that's a twin, and there was another one that was inside. No, this is not considered born, and the mother shechita would help. You follow? This is an extremely important statement. We didn't clarify this in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says different. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Bein einim mavlad, bein yeshim mavlad, chayshin levlad acher." It doesn't matter, even if there is a fetus, and the placenta comes out partially. I suspect that maybe there was a fetus that, for whatever reason, didn't have a placenta, and I have that was the fetus that's inside that came out after, and then I have this placenta that had a fetus, but it got dissolved, and the head already came out. It's very small, and this was considered born already, just with that little bit. So, in other words, if according to Rabbi Yochanan, I'm being strict, and according to Rabbi Lazar, I'm being lenient. The Gemara asks, Eily, is this the machlekes? Va'amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Rabbi Yirmiyah is down here. Rabbi Yirmiyah. He says that L'chumra amar Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar was being strict. We have to adjust what we just taught. Ela iyetmar hachi yitmar. Now, it's very possible that the Rabbi Yirmiyah down there is not really the Rabbi Yirmiyah. Could be it's a Rabbi Yirmiyah Barabba that's up here somewhere, but he's not on the paper. We had him yesterday, Rabbi Yirmiyah Barabba, that originally learned by Rav and came here. He would be on this level. That would make more sense. So Ela'iyat marhachiyat, we have to adjust it and teach it a little differently. Amar Rabbi Lazar says, Leishanu al hashein kshura bevlad. This was only taught if it's not attached to another. The placenta is not attached to another fetus. Aval kshura bevlad, but if it is attached to another fetus, ein chayshin levlad acher, then we don't suspect to another one. Now, what does that mean? That if there's a fetus inside that comes out, so this placenta had a different fetus, and it's considered born already, and it's not permitted. It's only if it's attached to one that it's not considered considered born, because the fetus, we see where it is, it's inside. Rabbi Yochanan says, all we have is a shilya without an offspring. Aval yeshim avlad, but if there is another offspring, bein kshur bevlad, bein ein kshur bevlad, ein cheshim bevlad acher. Rabbi Yochanan is more lenient. He says it doesn't matter if it's attached or not attached. If there's another offspring, then we say that this placenta was for that offspring, and because a piece of the placenta is already coming out, doesn't mean it's born. Because I look inside, I see there's an offspring there, and nothing came out yet. So here, Rabbi Yochanan is the lenient one. Yeah.
I don't understand. If they're paternal twins,
Yes,
you have
yes.
two placentas. So how can we make all these judgments based on one placenta about another fetus when maybe there's another placenta we haven't even seen attached to the other fetus?
I don't have an explanation.
But you see the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about
Right.
one placenta, the majority
Right.
one placenta, and then
Is
we're gonna
there?
say-
Talking about double placenta.
Okay. There's like multiple possibilities here. It could be a paternal twins. Then there's two placentas.
Right.
If it's
maternal,
maternal,
it's one placenta.
placenta.
So
So
the Gemara's been talking so far about a maternal twin.
that could be.
But we know when it comes to behemoths and all of that, in general, it's
Right.
quite likely there could be, if there's more than one, there
Right.
could be placenta.
Right.
Unless they just
So-
happen to have one bull.
So Either this is like a strange,
Yes, so what is the
some
possibility
anomaly, something dissolved or whatever inside. No, I don't have a clear. I don't know exactly what all the options.
Maybe it would go according to the most common occurrence, which is usually a single fetus rather than multiple. I'm guessing.
Could be.
What did you say?
I'm saying maybe it's referring to what's the most common. The most common may be a single birth, not a multiple birth.
I don't know how it is by an animal.
So if she gives birth right before Yeshecht, and Yeshecht, and then you find a second fetus in it, is that still a ben pekor?
Yeah, the one that's inside for sure is
no
the
matter
ben
what,
pekor.
even though it's twin.
What we're
came out.
discussing here is that if there's a placenta that's halfway in and halfway out, do we say that that placenta is permissible to eat if you would want to eat it?
Rabbi, please.
Halfway in or halfway out prior to the birth, or before the birth.
Sushi style.
At the either or. It's the fact that I have one still inside doesn't mean that this placenta is not. Is it possible that there's another fetus inside this placenta that's been dissolved and it's being born now just by coming out partially, because the head was in that part that came out? That's what we're discussing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we've just taught it, behind Adam Rabbi Yirmiyah l'chumra Rabbi Lazar, that Rabbi Lazar was going l'chumra. Tanya Kavasei de Rabbi Lazar. There's a brisa that proves Rabbi Lazar. Hamapelas min behem el chayavai fishel yimayim. If some animal has an offspring that's something slightly different than what the mother is. So some sort of
Because it has wings in it.
yeah.
Like we learned earlier,
Like we
a
had-
pigeon inside,
right.
a camel inside.
And if there's a shilya together with it, or a placenta, bisman shekshur behem, if it's attached, so in chayshin levlad acher. We don't suspect that there's another child. Ein kshur behem. I'm sorry, this is actually referring to a nida, a woman. We don't suspect that there's another child if the placenta is attached. However, if the placenta is not attached, then I put on the stringency of two children. Shani Yomer, because I'm going to say Shemani Muach Shpir Shel Shilya, V'Shemani Mucha Shel Yasi Shel Shpir. I'm going to say that this child that came out lost its placenta, and this child that came out, and this placenta that came out lost its fetus. And therefore, I'm going to put on it two stringencies, which would mean, first of all, I'm going to consider what came out to be a